So it is now 6 p.m. and I'm going to open Townsend's Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, January, I don't know what today's date is, 6th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. I'm going to start with roll call. Bless you. John Hussey,
Here.
Jim DeRorian,
Here.
Jim LaQueer, Ann LaQueer, they're still trying to join us. Dalton Wagman,
Present.
Jennifer Eaton,
Here.
and Karen Hill is here. 1.3, topics unanticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. So I'd like to add 3.3, the planning board meeting jointly with all boards, January 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. It's about grants work session. And 4.4, planning board joint meeting jointly with all boards, January 7th, 2021, 7 p.m. grants work session. May I get a motion to add that in the appropriate locations?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. John Hussey, are you in favor of this?
Yes, I am.
Jim Drury, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
I will skip over the LaQueers. Dalton Wegman, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
Jennifer Eaton, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
And I, Karen Hill, am in favor of this. 1.4 Chairs Report. I don't have anything today. So 1.5 Agents Report.
I'll carry on as we proceed, but I would like to make one comment. And I'll make this really, really brief. I understand how hard and how difficult it is to be a public servant. I especially empathize, sympathize, and will assist in any way I can with any public board, as you would as well. I'm very proud of the work that you have done, individually and in totality. And I must say that I think you go about your work using a term that I use frequently for myself, and that is the word smile. That means service, mentoring, inspiring, learning, and having ethical conduct. So I appreciate every day that you participate in your life and every day you participate in these hearings and the way in which you go about your business. Think of that. Think of the word smile and the impact those 4 letters can have individually or in totality on anyone's individual life. Having said that, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Actually, I don't know if I said this before I opened the meeting, but I will say it again. We are recording.
Thank you.
So 1.6, approve 12, December 2nd, 2020 minutes and December 16th, 2020 minutes. You are all emailed those. Dave, did you get changes or were they perfect?
They were in good form.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve and release the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
John Hussey, you in favor of this?
I am.
Jim Dorian, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
Dalton Wegman, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
Jennifer Eaton, are you in favor of this?
I am.
And I, Karen Hill, am in favor of this. It's 6:05. We have a hearing at 6:05. So we'll go down to 2.1, continuation of a notice of intent for Diane Silva / Iodice Family.
You're on.
Karen's frozen.
She's
Yeah.
frozen. Hi, Stan.
Why don't you proceed, Stan?
All right. We had that meeting earlier this week with several of the
9 West Meadow
entities
Road.
involved
The
with.
proposed project is for,
Might take her a minute to catch
Hang
up.
on,
here.
Stan. Yeah, right, exactly.
So I kind of thought about this a little bit and realized that there's many masters we have to try to serve with this project. And it all stemmed from the building commissioner issuing a cease and desist for the earth removal and all that, but mostly because he felt there were areas that were unsafe. And that's where I got involved, was to come up with a way to make these unstable areas safe again. And that triggered a filing with the Conservation Commission for the areas that are in their jurisdiction. It also triggered a filing with endangered species and with the Zoning Board of Appeals for earth removal or earth excavation. Planning Board for stormwater, and Fish and Game comes into play because they have agreed to purchase the property once we've satisfied all these other masters. So for the Conservation Commission portion of this, we have the area that's in the rear where there was a historic wetland that showed on a plan that was done in the early 2000s. And that, I'm calling that a historic wetland because it was an isolated wetland that I believe was created years ago from earth excavation, but nonetheless, it's there.
If I could
And-
just, Stan, I'm sorry. I'm trying to screen share right now, and if Hartley is out there, please give me permission to screen share.
From me, sure.
No,
Oh.
are you able to screen share? Because I can't. I am
I'll
frozen
see
out.
what I can do.
oh, Hartley says we're good.
We're good? Okay. Well,
Well, let me
Oh.
see what I can do. I haven't done this, so I'm not sure how to do it.
I'll wait a second to see whether or not it pops up, because I would like to share some photographs of those particular areas that you're referring to.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing, so,
Well, why don't you carry on and I'll worry about it on my end.
all right. Anyhow, I think the majority of the people on the meeting have seen the plan anyhow. And we've done a couple of site walks out there. So there's an area in the rear that is an old excavation area that was left a mess. There's a couple of big piles of loam out there. There's one big pile of screened stone that's, inch stone that's, I calculated to be about 460 yards of stone. And there's a couple of slopes out there that are quite dangerous. They're almost vertical. There's one of them, there's a big dead tree on the top. There's some construction debris on the top of it. There's some concrete pipe and so forth. So the original plan that we submitted was to restore those areas and loam and seed, make the slopes 3-to-1, loam and seed those areas, restoring the wetlands that were impacted by this work and the previous work. But since then, we've been out there a couple of times. We've had some discussions, and the area that was disturbed is already coming back on its own. There's facultative wetland vegetation growing in there, as there is in one of the other borrow pits closer to West Meadow Road. So we've had some discussions back and forth about what we should do there. And I think we've come around to the consensus, at least in my opinion, from the meeting earlier this week with Rebecca from Natural Heritage and Ann from Fish and Game, and Karen was on that meeting, that we should remove that material from these sensitive areas that's stockpiled there, and then make the area safe, i.e. flatten the slopes out so they're not dangerous, and then just leave it because it's going to come back. And I think Ann and Rebecca's preference was to do that, because to loam and seed it, we'd have to more than likely import loam, and you're importing it from who knows where, what kind of seed material is in there. You're going to be introducing a bunch of invasive species. And as we've seen, by leaving it alone, nature's kind of taking it back on its own. And even the emergent vegetation that would grow in the upland areas, Rebecca felt that was actually good habitat for the endangered species, as were the exposed sand slopes, would be good nesting habitat for turtles and so forth. So I think the plan that you have before you, if we reach a consensus this evening, will be modified to reflect what I've just discussed. And I think there's three areas on the site that would lend itself to that. And really only this area in the back is within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. I understand that the whole site needs to be cleaned up, and I'm not disputing that in any way, but we have to try to satisfy each one of these masters as we go along. And I think we need to come to some consensus with the commission so we can then move on to the next step with the earth removal permit and the stormwater permit and so forth. So at that, I will leave it at that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Dave can chime in if necessary, because he was on that meeting too. And I see Ann is here too, so.
So Stan, if I could just comment and follow up on some of the things that you had mentioned, and as importantly to outline the meeting that Stan had referred to just a moment ago. On Monday, there was a Zoom meeting that I put together for Anna Rogers, who is one of the 3 owners of the property in question. I additionally asked Rebecca Zimmer from NHESP, Stan Dillis, who's the consultant who's been hired by the trust, Karen Hill, who is the chairperson of the Townsend Conservation Commission, myself, I'm the conservation agent here in Townsend, and Ann Gagnon, who is the representative from Mass Fish and Wildlife, who have an interest in this property as well. If I could just take a moment or two to reflect on just some of the observations that I took away from the hearing, wrong terminology, from our meeting. These are in really no specific order, but if you have a question at all pertaining to anything that I'm going to address right now, I would hope that you would just hold on to that thought until I get through these, because it's quite somewhat lengthy, and it's important that it goes on the record. Those questions that you might have, if you would be so kind as just to write them down, just give yourself a note and ask me after the fact. So, as Stan was alluding to, that there originally was a plan that was put together for us, and we looked at it as recently as the 16th, I believe. It could have been the 4th, rather recent. And that plan, which was presented to us about a year ago, consisted of 3 different zones that we went through that would be revegetated through a variety of different New England seed mixes, and it would be based with loam. And there were other parts of the restoration itself that I won't go into detail right now, but the crux of the matter is to restore that particular area. And as Stan had said, we have been out there multiple times, Stan and I together, solo, the commission, a variety of people. I've been out there more than a dozen times in the last 2 years. So I may not know it as intimately as the family members or Stan. I certainly am aware of what the trust is encountering here, as well as the various parties that are representing and have an interest in this particular property. Having said that, Dan is right. The area in question has revegetated quite nicely over the last 2 growing seasons. There are facultative plants that have been exhibited out there as recently as our site visit, which was, I believe, the 12th of December, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But what was observed out there, for example, were jewelweed, which is a FAC plant, several types of rushes and sedges, and Stan had also suggested that if we had left this, or if we leave this on its own and let nature take its course, it certainly has become apparent to us over the last 2 growing seasons that it has been functioning quite nicely. So should the commission agree to limit the restoration, as Stan alluded to just a moment ago, and or allow the resource area to revegetate as it has been for the last 2 growing seasons, that certainly reduces the impacts on the area. It was suggested that an amended plan, which Stan alluded to a moment ago, be designed in accounting for all limits of work and taking into account all the exposures that are out there, even those that are beyond those of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. NHESP and Mass Fish and Wildlife responded that they thought a plan in its totality would be very effective, because instead of having multiple plans from multiple boards, we have one plan coming from one commission addressing multiple problems that multiple boards face. So I'm not inferring that we're going to make the decisions for those particular committees or boards. What I'm suggesting is a plan will be put together addressing which gravel areas or aggregated area pits should be cleaned up, how the trash will be removed, when it will be removed, who will remove it, like that. In conjunction with the Conservation Commission. The amended areas that we're referring to on this amended plan, the areas on this plan that we're alluding to in this particular case, again, refers to resource areas, trash removal, dirt excavation work, and gravel removal. Mass Fish and Wildlife and NHESP agreed, I believe, that no seeding or significant loam work should be completed, as it creates an opportunity for further destruction of habitat, the invasion of new species of seed brought in by outside loam in particular, as well as the resource areas that protect the reptiles and the turtles in particular that inhabit this particular space. As Stan said a moment ago, the building department sent a cease and desist order in May of 2017 to the applicant. This applied, from what I understand, for earth removal and that type of disturbance only. It did not apply to trash removal because that's a Board of Health issue, so I'm told. In January 2020, an order of conditions was sent to the applicant from NHESP, defining, as we all know, we've talked about this in the past multiple times and we've all seen documents, outlining what they have to do in order to proceed with the work. And that consisted of, amongst other things, the seasonality in which this work can proceed, as well as the registration of the particular order of conditions, which was submitted to the applicant, or submitted and dated on January 2020. NHESP also confirmed that no further trash removal can proceed until the applicant gets approval from the appropriate boards. Mass Fish and Wildlife requires that the trash be eliminated. The use of any loam to be limited, if it's used at all, in lieu of what's already out there, is limited to the buffer zone, resource area, and to the BVW. Depth on the original plan, I believe, Stan, was at 6 inches. It could have been 6.5. If I'm mistaken, please.
It was, some areas was 6, some were 8, but
Nonetheless, okay. No imported loam or aggregate would be allowed. The Zoning Board of Appeals must determine if the earth excavation work requires a permit. That will not happen until early February, from what I understand, because there's a 35-day wait period that's required in order for outside public comment. Mass Fish and Wildlife and National Heritage had no objection to stone removal to assist the financing of the project. That will not happen. I'm sorry. Additionally, they indicated that as far as the reptiles and the turtles and the overall habitat value that that particular gravel provides to that habitat is minimal at best, and its best function of resource is financial, and that would help the family proceed with financing whatever work that they have to do as they proceed with the project and continue with their process with Mass Fish and Wildlife, who at this point in time are in negotiations, I believe, with the trust. I know nothing further about that. If an amended plan is approved, as we were just discussing a moment ago, if that amended plan is approved or disapproved by the commission, I would suggest that the commission proceed with the receipt of the totality of the new plan that Stan and his applicant are offering up. NHESP must approve the amended plan as well. we're hopeful that we would have a response from them, whatever it might be, within 30 days of receipt on their end. Now, one thing I want to be really clear on, you can proceed however you want and formulate a special order of conditions however it's dictated by the commission. And we've already gotten input from you, from several of you, as to how that should be written. Not specifically, but just in individuality. Last item is that I guess we have to confirm which gravel pits or stone piles, however you want to define it, are in jurisdictional areas. So those were some of the highlights that I took away from the hearing that we had, not the hearing, I said that the second time, sorry about that, from the Zoom meeting that I had offered up on Monday morning. Let me see if I can get my screen share going here, and I cannot. So having said that, does the commission have any questions pertaining to any of the 15 items that I had just outlined, or anything else that I can address or Stan can address? And then shortly thereafter, I would like to introduce Ann Gagnon and her associate, Pat Huckabee, from Mass Fish and Wildlife, so they can make their appropriate comments as well.
I have a few questions, Karen, if I may.
Please.
So to Stan,
Yes.
so are you suggesting that there be no regrading, and doing the regrading would be of consequence to the turtles and other reptiles?
There would be regrading of the areas that are unstable or unsafe per the building inspector's request that unsafe areas be made stable, but that regrading would be with the moving the material that's there, and if it's done in the appropriate time of year, it wouldn't have any impact on the endangered species. So it would,
Okay.
and based on what I heard from Rebecca at NHESP, and I think Ann Gagnon echoed that to some extent, and she can certainly verify that, is that that would actually provide good habitat for the endangered species, those exposed areas, because that's what the turtles like to nest in, are those exposed sandy areas.
Okay, that makes sense. The other question I have is about the loam there, because I think you're suggesting removing that loam. Is that correct?
Removing it or using it elsewhere on site. It wouldn't leave the site.
When you say site, do you mean what's within our purview?
No, that would be removed from that area.
Okay, so
That's part of
removed
the area,
from the,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
do you mean from what's in our jurisdiction, but on the IID's property, removed from
Right,
there?
it would
And
stay
Right.
on, my feelings, it would stay on the area, but that area is the area that we're trying to restore and enhance as habitat. So where the plan that I would present would be to remove that from that area and have it be used somewhere else on the site for some other purpose.
so that loam as it stands right now is across from where that wetland has formed and revegetated. So to extract that and move elsewhere, somewhere on the property, wouldn't that create a disturbance that you're trying to avoid?
Well, there's going to have to be some disturbance. You're going to have to break a few eggs to get an omelet here, because you can't. And there's that pile of stone that both endangered species and Fish and Game would like to see removed. So there's going to have to be some work in that area to make it, to bring it to the point where what I believe everybody wants it to be. So there will be work in that area.
So would it be better for the turtles to leave that pile there or to remove it? I guess that's what it comes down to for me.
Those piles turtles have no interest in those piles of loam or rocks.
So it would be beneficial or to no detriment.
I think it would be no detriment and more beneficial for the endangered species to remove that, and that would make that a more enticing nesting area for them.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Dan, I have a question.
Sure.
You indicated at the last site walk we were on that the 3-to-1 sloping was going to happen in our jurisdiction and outside our jurisdiction. Is that still on the
That's-
table, or have you guys decided to change that? Because
No, that's
awful lot of
correct, John.
steep, a lot of steep slopes in there, and I don't think that that's conducive to any wildlife at all, really, in my opinion.
Nope, the plan is to restore any of the slopes that are excessive on the site, everywhere on the site to a 3-to-1 slope.
Yeah.
So within the buffer zone in your jurisdiction and outside of it. And I think that's something that Fish and Game wants to see happen too before they purchase the property.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of work just knocking those slopes down. Did, who mentioned, was it you or some other entity here that mentioned perhaps one or two departments taking over this whole thing, or?
No, I'm sorry that was me, John. If I
Oh,
communicated that wrong, let me see if I can clarify it. Yeah, certainly there are other departments that are involved in this. Stan had submitted application to the planning board for the stormwater permit and also for the earth/dirt excavation permit. I think that's how you define it. I could be wrong. And as I alluded to, the ZBA has to, is looking at the dirt permit sometime, I presume, sometime in early February, because we have that 35-day wait period so people can comment and so on and so forth, go through the process.
Yeah.
But what I think Stan and I echoed was that Stan was going to put together a plan which would be really significantly different from the one which was presented to us in the original NOI, which would encompass the exposures that all these departments have. He'll identify the gravel pits that'll be moved. I'm sorry, the gravel pits, however you want to define them, where they'll be moved to, how they'll be moved. The slopes are going to be defined down to 3-to-1. What specific areas of trash removal are really, highlighted. The trailers back there, the tires back there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To their credit, the place is looking very, very good, as we've all seen over the last number of site visits. I hope that answers your question. Does that answer it?
I just want to reiterate, my concerns have been regarding not only our jurisdiction, but others. I'm very concerned with a particular barrel that's near one of these trailers that I believe could possess a petroleum product. There's an awful lot of trash, a lot of tires that are, although they're out of our jurisdiction, I still, as a conservation commissioner, I feel very strongly that those tires are a detriment to the environment. So,
Well, that would be part of the cleanup plan, John, because
sure,
that's a demand. That's a demand that NHESP and Mass Fish and Wildlife also have.
No, I'm talking outside of my jurisdictional control, but it's still an important part of the environment there, and it needs cleaning up.
Yep.
I
So-
think
so
we
the-
have notes on the plan that specified that the trash removal, the chain of custody for the trash removal would be required as part of the final sign-off process.
Well, we don't know that yet. That's a condition that.
That's what I would suggest that.
Well, that's an excellent point and observation.
Hey, Karen?
Yeah.
Who here would have the most expertise in regards to reptiles, turtles? Would that be Ann Gagnon or Patricia, perhaps?
Both of them.
Could we ask them to provide comment on the removal of that loam and to its benefit, like Stan was mentioning?
We could. One of the things we did get for our meeting on Monday was a comment from Dan Wells. who was a wildlife biologist that the Iodized Trust hired to do their wildlife study. And he commented that the stone piles really weren't great habitat. And that turtles really like sandy loam. But
So there's
it-
gravel behind that big loam pile, right?
Right.
Right,
Yep.
but what about the loam? I'm just looking for expertise on that. Is it the best thing for them to remove that?
Karen, I can speak to that if you'd like me to.
Please do.
Thank
So-
you, thank you.
That's okay. So I'm Pat Huckery, and thanks for letting me talk.
Hey,
Thanks for
glad to
that,
have you.
Dalton, and it really is good to meet you all, you new ones.
Pleasure.
And so, yeah, so we have a couple rare turtles out there. And as far as what's in your jurisdiction or even outside your jurisdiction, in the piles of, there's piles of gravel, there's piles of rock, and there's piles of loam. The only piles that they would not nest in are those rocks. It's loam is fine. They'll nest on the top of a mulch pile, you know. So the loam is fine. And as long and there are some steep slopes, John. However, turtles will nest on the steep slopes, and they often go to the top of those slopes. They'll climb right to the top, and they'll nest at the top. So I think the only area we're really talking about that isn't nesting habitat are the rocks, the rock pile.
So it sounds like removing that loam pile would actually be removing potential habitat. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be of detriment. The best thing to do, in your opinion, would be to just let it lay.
Let it lay. And if it should happen that we actually are the owners of this property, we'll probably be back before the commission after we get a sense of the property and what the turtles are doing there, and you know, and possibly want to create multiple mounds for female turtles to nest in.
So more would even be better, you're saying?
Yeah, we just don't know that. We just would like to have as a part of our ability to manage the property. Yep.
So if that's the case, then would you prefer, Pat, not to disturb those particular loam piles at all, irrespective of the sloping on it?
Correct, Dave. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And if they're not, and the whole reseeding part and spreading the loam was problematic for us too, because Blanding's turtles like, rare turtles like sparsely vegetated sandy loam and loam. They don't like it heavily. Grass, a lot of grasses or a lot of shrubs are in it. They won't nest in those areas. So if the loam was not spread around on a property, then we would have a longer period of time when we wouldn't have to do any nesting restoration.
So Pat, you weren't a party to the conversation we had on Monday with some of your associates, as well as the others, some of which are on board here tonight. Do you think, and I'll be straightforward, so the plan that we're talking about, this aggregated totality of a plan that we're talking about, would you prefer that there not be any grading out there?
I don't see a need for any grading. And I was talking to Ann. Ann and I talk a lot together. So, and we're very much talking about this project every day. So I do know some of what happened. I know what happened at that phone call, and I do know that the Heritage didn't really care.
So I'll
Well,
clear.
well, hang on, Dave.
Okay.
So some of those slopes are way too steep for just safety sake. I mean, I can't, in good conscience, say it's okay to leave those as steep as they are. It's an accident waiting to happen. You know, if that's property that's people are going to be allowed onto the public, you're creating a hazard that could kill someone actually. So I think the slopes need to be knocked down a little bit. That's my, you know.
The way I look at, when we open a property, it's a wild experience when you come to our properties. And we do have I understand what you're saying, Karen. We feel like we have a lot of dangerous places if you look at it that way on our properties. We have deep vernal pools with a lot of muck in them. We have other steep slopes at some of our properties, rocky ledges and that kind of stuff. And so we don't think we haven't created an attractive nuisance. It is, it's habitat. And people enter our property at their, at their own risk.
Okay, well, I lost a friend in a sand pit to a slope that, so I'm a little sensitive to it, so.
I hear you.
Could I just add one thing there to that? Is that in this particular area that we're talking about in the rear, where we're talking about the loam pile, there is an area there where the steeps are almost vertical, and there is construction debris on the top of the slope. So I think it would be prudent to remove that material, and while they're at it, just flatten that slope out a little bit. In my opinion, that's the one that's the most dangerous. I can see
I agree.
I can see a kid being up there and climbing in one of those 36-inch diameter pipes and the thing going over the cliff. And since we're going to be doing something in there anyhow, we're going to be at a minimum removing that pile of stone. That at the same time, they should address that issue in that area, in my opinion.
That's really the area I was talking about, was that right around the loam pile.
Right.
That makes sense.
I just wanted to point out that a lot of these piles have become vegetated and are therefore stable. So as Stan mentioned, that loam pile in the back, getting rid of the pipes on the top and regrading that to a better slope would address Karen's concern about safety.
Yeah.
But the piles towards the front that I personally saw, they seemed very stable.
Well, there has to be a couple of thousand cement blocks somewhere there that I'm sure everyone has seen that is not conducive to natural habitat to anything, in my opinion.
No, those are slated to be removed.
Yeah, they need to be ground, as well as the 36-inch, whatever you want to call them, those pipes, concrete pipes. That could all be done on site, I would think, but whatever.
Hi, Karen. Can I take a quick minute and chime in?
Actually, wait a minute. Actually, you should abstain from this discussion because you have not participated in any of the discussions over the last several months. You can ask a question as a resident. State your name and your address, Jim, and your question.
President Jim Durand, West Meadow Road, number 42, just down below the property. I've grown up in that area, probably know it better than any one individual there at this meeting. I just have a quick, concern with Stanley. Is there a number that we have right now of material that we are going to possibly remove, or is it just the stone we are looking at to remove off-site?
Well, from what I'm hearing from Ms. Huggery and Ms. Gagnon is that they really don't want us to remove any of that, any of that material. The loam, other than that stone pile, we would remove that. And other than that, I don't think there's anything else that they would like to see. Nothing else removed.
Okay, and
Besides the trash.
Besides it, obviously, besides it.
Yeah.
But I have to mirror, Karen's concerns is to the slopes out there and the degree of them. I understand where, where Pat's coming from. You have to be cautious to your environment, and, we can't save everybody, but that was created by gravel removal. So I think it's going to be the responsibility of the owners to bring those all back to a safe, reasonable sloping and loam it. But I mean, other than that, my biggest concern is to see another gravel pit on West Meadow Road open up. So other than that, just fading back.
Thanks,
Well,
Jim.
I can tell you Stan said that one pile that they're recommending they remove is 460 yards. So that at this point is the only pile that they're talking about removing from the site. Everything else is going to stay put on site.
That's what I'm hearing, that's what I'm hearing that the potential buyers of the property would like to see.
I concur.
So didn't Ann and Patricia just say that it would be better for that loam pile to stay as it is and only for the gravel pile to be removed?
That's what we're
Yes.
talking
Correct.
about.
Yeah.
That's correct.
That's what we're talking about is the gravel pile.
Okay. Okay.
And I would just point out that, if there are steep slopes that everyone would like to see reduced, those could be reduced to 2-to-1 as opposed to 3-to-1. 3-to-1 is a much more gradual slope.
Well, was it the building commissioner that asked for a certain slope?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
and I'd have to double check, and don't quote me on it, but I think the earth removal section of the bylaw allows you to go to a 2-to-1 slope.
Okay.
And I assume the building inspector is going to be the one that's going to oversee any removal, because that is his responsibility as the building inspector.
Well, the
Not to
part,
oversee it, no.
He wouldn't have jurisdiction over that. The way it typically works when the ZBA issues an earth removal permit, they in the past, they have overseen that. Now, how they're doing it now, the person that used to do that is no longer with us. So I don't know how they do that, but when we apply for the permit, I'm sure they'll tell us how they want oversight for that.
Thank you, Stan.
Anybody else?
if I could just further comment, Jim, to your question and your good point. As a part of the special orders of conditions, that area will be identified, and that's the work and the limits of work will also be identified. And it's reasonably possible that we'll request licensed contractors to go out to do the work as a part of that special order. But I hope that helps at least clarify some of your questions on that end.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I would just
Concerns?
add one other thing, that the area where the 460 cubic yards of that stone would be removed is within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. So Dave would actually monitor that as under the jurisdiction of the commission.
That's correct. Good observation, Stan. Thank you.
And still, in order to get to that stone pile, you have to go through a section of that historic wetland.
We do. But it's in transition now, and it's up until it started to revegetate a year and a half ago. It was bare ground. So if we make, we're in there for a few days and flatten out what's there, in my opinion, it will come back pretty readily.
Right. Well, and we had a drought year too, so.
Right. Well, the beauty is that they excavated these pits pretty close to groundwater.
Right.
So there's a good water supply.
And just to further comment on a point that I made earlier in terms of the vegetation that was out there, I said there was jewelweed, which is a fact plant. There were various rushes out there. I believe canary grass was also observed. So silky dogwood or I think it's red twine dogwood as well. I didn't look at the pith, so I don't know, but both of those plants are facultative and/or facultative wet. and the probability of them being able to recover well is very strong, given the type of disturbance that'll be taking place out there in order to get that gravel removed. So, though there is impact, I don't think the long-term impact will be significant, particularly if much of this work is done within the time period that NHESP has spelled out, and that is between today and the 15th of April.
I would add too that the owners were concerned at the cost of doing this, and their initial reaction was that they thought they might need to remove material from the site to sell it to fund the cleanup. But with what we're discussing now, there's going to be far less work that's required there. So the economic impact to them should be significantly less.
The environmental impact will be significantly less as well.
Correct.
I do have a question, so, and you may not be able to answer this right now, but the concrete block and the concrete pipes, are those going to be hauled off, or are you intending to crush them on site and leave them on site?
I hadn't thought that. I was always under the impression that they'd be removed. I hadn't thought about crushing them on site. If they were crushed on site, I'm not sure where you'd put the crushed stuff. So
Okay.
I thought it would probably be easy. Well, and I don't do this kind of work, but in my opinion, it would be easier to load them onto something and bring them to some place that processes that kind of stuff. And you might get a little bit of money for it too if you do that. A place that reclaims concrete products or something.
Yeah.
So.
I don't believe that they would be giving you a check. I think you'd be,
Well,
giving them one.
Mhm.
But
you know by the fact that I'm here all the time, John, that I'm an eternal optimist.
Yes, you are.
So the cement blocks,
That's a good
once
giggle.
they're crushed,
That's a good giggle.
they become clean. A cement block that's crushed becomes clean fill. Whether the people that are purchasing the property want the clean fill to be pushed around to help alleviate some of these steep slopes, it's up to them. The 36-inch concrete tiles are inundated with steel.
Right, they're gonna have wire mesh in them.
So those might want to go somewhere, I don't know, but that wire can't stay
Right.
in the
No,
ground.
agreed.
Concrete could, but the wire can't, I'm sure.
And do you have any thoughts on that with the crushing the concrete blocks, or Pat, either one of you?
Well, it's funny. I look at certain
Put
things.
you on the spot.
In a way, they're funky wildlife habitat, and so I was interested in your concerns about them. And it could be something that we. It's not a hazardous waste. It has all these crevices, and it's got vegetation growing around it, and there's other. It can be habitat for like snakes and other critters. So, is there? Let me know what your concerns are about that, because they could stay there as far as Fish and Wildlife is concerned.
So do you want the tires to stay there too?
No.
'Cause they could be habitat.
No,
They warm up.
Funny thing, Karen, we have more trouble with
Yeah, I know.
turtles getting stuck inside tires, and they can't get out. And
I'll bet.
Okay.
Tire removal doesn't fall in that category.
Okay, just,
Can I just
trying.
give you a quick description? I mean, this is, Dave can help me out here too, but this is not a small pile of cinder blocks where there's, 20 or 30 cinder blocks where some snakes might go. This is a pile of probably 5,000 cinder blocks. It's a big pile, and it's 10 feet. It's 10 feet high. So, I don't know which way the holes go, but if something, a critter climbs up and falls in the hole, it might not get
Closer
out.
to 20 feet, but it is 10 feet.
Yeah,
It's
it's
massive.
big.
There's there's gotta be, you were right about the numbers, Stan.
Yeah,
Are we
it's
talking about the
Up there in
pipe,
the side
Stan?
top.
No,
Or-
I'm talking about the concrete blocks.
Concrete blocks.
There's a couple of piles out there and they're pretty big. So
Yes, they are massive, and there is a high number of them out there. And at best, they're all at this point in time deteriorating. So in due time, that is all going to fall down on its own.
So they're a cement block that's 8 inches by 8 inches by 24 inches. And there's over 5,000 of them there.
Right, and I guess the other thing I would say, we don't know what all the crevices in there were filled up with over the years too. There could be some interesting things that are in there. In my opinion, I personally think it would be best to get them out of there. That's just my opinion, but.
But I think
I'm just talking about the big pipes.
Oh,
the
yeah, the
pipe-
big pipes.
Well, there's a bunch of, the pipe ranges inside, but the majority of it's pretty big. It's 24 or 36 inch pipe.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, I don't know what kind of habitat that provides or not, but,
That's what I thought we were talking about.
oh, okay. No, we're talking about the concrete.
When
the
you
cinder
say
blocks.
36 inch, that's the inside diameter. Just so you're aware, because there's probably 6 inches of concrete around that minimally. And they're 8 feet long. And then they're belled because they have to fit together. They have to go together.
Right, I mean, if they provide habitat and nobody objects to them staying there, I guess that they're not an environmental hazard. And I guess at the larger size, 36 inches, they're not a safety hazard.
No.
You worry about a small size, a kid crawling in there or something, but with that size, that wouldn't happen.
I just don't think it displays a very natural overtone to the area.
I agree.
And everybody likes circles. That's a fun thing. But anyway, as a person of West Meadow Road since 1959, I don't know if anyone has seen it or if they've been very closely looking, but we do have a bald eagle out there. I've been watching it for the last year now. I think I sent a picture to you, Karen. I think I've sent a picture to John. And it was 6 weeks ago, not that this is any big deal, but it was over across the street and I watched it for 10 minutes eating my red-tailed hawk. So, live and let live. I just hope what we're doing up there on, West Meadow with that piece of property is that we do take real care of it because it's a beautiful area. I mean, I've been out there since I was a little kid, talking 8, 9, 10 years old. We have bobcat out there, we have bear out there, and every other imaginable thing under the sun, because Ash Swamp is just a beautiful habitat. And I hope whatever we do, we take good care and concern with it. Finish this project up once and for all, and get it to where it should be going. So once again, just chiming in as just a kid growing up on West Meadow Road there. Thank you.
So, all right. Any other questions or comments? I was going to say something and I changed my mind. So,
Yep.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just one quick question for Stan. In that wetland that has revegetated, there's a clear trail, could have been, for vehicles or machinery.
Right.
When you cross that area, because you're going to need to do the bit of work that we're discussing, will you limit it to that area that's already disturbed for the
Yeah,
machinery?
yeah. Right, they would
Okay.
use that area. And now that loam pile is gonna stay, they'll just go around that loam pile on that existing road and get that pile of stone out of there. And then they will have to traverse it heading towards the brook there to get to that slope that's really steep. But if they go in there with an excavator and cross it and come back out, it shouldn't really create that much of an issue. They won't be digging in that area. They'll just be going across it. So I think that'll be fine.
Excellent.
And Dalton, just to reiterate in a bit what Stan had said, also keep in mind, as I know you do, but just as reiterating, it's time of year. So, this is the time of year to do that kind of work in that particular kind of environment, because the exposure that reptiles have and turtles in particular, snakes, is pretty de minimis.
So I think based on what we've talked about tonight, I can come up with a modified plan in the next short period of time here that I could maybe distribute to Ann and to Dave, and he could in turn distribute it to you guys. And hopefully that if we met again in a couple of weeks, we could maybe wrap up this first stop on my trolley tour through the woods in town. And because somebody's got to come first, and it really has to be you guys. So
Yeah. So should I do a roll call vote to see if everyone's in favor of seeing a new plan?
I would suggest that, yes,
Okay, so should I get a motion then?
indeed.
So can I get a motion to have Stan come up with a new all-inclusive plan of what is going to go on up at 59 West Meadow Road?
So motioned.
Aye.
Thank you. And second? Do I get a second? Thank you. John Hussey, are you in favor of this?
I am.
Jim Drury, are you in favor?
No, he can't participate
Okay.
in the vote.
Just as I said that. Dalton Wegman, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
Jennifer Eaton, are you in favor of this?
I am.
And I am in favor of this. Okay, can I get a motion to continue this to, when's our next meeting? January
16th,
20th,
20th.
sorry.
Motion to continue.
Can I get a second?
Second.
John Hussey, you in favor of continuing this?
I am.
Dalton Wegman, are you in favor of continuing this?
Yes.
Jennifer Eaton
Yes.
and Karen Hill is. All right, Stan, we will see you on the 20th.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stan. Happy New
Nice
Year.
job.
Thank
See you,
you.
Ann. See you,
Bye.
Pat.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Yep, nice to meet you all.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
could I ask for a recess for like 3 minutes,
sure.
please?
Can I get a motion for a recess?
Motion for recess.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So my question,
We're on again. What was the question, or do you want me to mute it again?
yeah.
one of the issues with age.
Is everybody unmuted yet?
And Stan stepped away, I think, also.
We're unmuted.
Okay,
Oh, we have Stan on for another one?
yeah.
Do we? Yeah.
So I'm gonna call the meeting back to order at 7 PM. We had a 6:30 appointment. Is that appointment there?
Steve, are you there? Steve Sears?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I gotta read so you're here, I gotta open the meeting.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. So we have a request for determination of applicability, TWB 2020-179. The applicant is Erica Delova. The location is 36 Old Battery Road. The project is a septic system replacement with related grading. And we have, who's here? David Sears?
Steve Steers from David Ross and Associates.
Oh, and while I have a point of order, I filed a disclosure because David E. Ross Associates is doing work for me currently.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You think?
Okay. Should I start, David?
Yeah, please, please. Welcome.
Okay. This is, again, this is an upgrade for a failing sewage system. Part of the existing system presently is within the 100-foot buffer of the border of vegetative wetlands. But the new system we've designed is completely out of the 100-foot buffer. However, there is some related grading to that septic system that's within that buffer, approximately 500 square feet. If you've got the plan on your screen, you can see it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am unable to share my information on the screen still. The commissioners have all received copies of the plan. So unfortunately, I apologize for that glitch.
Okay. And I apologize. I don't have access to a computer at my house, so I'm on the phone. But anyways, if you can look at the plan, I can kind of talk about it. The entire area, most of the entire lot is within the 200 foot of an intermittent stream. It's an unnamed stream. I didn't have the chance to see if it went dry during the summer because we only got involved in the fall. It had a slight trickle at that time. But the other main thing is that we've tried to maintain a 100-foot offset from the vegetative wetlands. The good thing about the system design, the entire area of the new leach field, the septic tanks, and all the grading is on a lawn. So there won't be any removal of vegetation. The only thing they have to remove is the shed. They're going to move that out of the way during construction. But the entire area is a lawn. And we try to maximize the offset 100 feet from the well and 100 feet from the vegetation. Again, we're within 200 feet of the intermittent stream, but we're outside the 100-foot buffer on that. And that's about it. We're not increasing the flow. We're not adding on. She just wants to fix the house because it's been giving her problems.
So the system is failing, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you plan on putting the shed back in the same location, or is it just going to be relocated?
I think she's just going to pick it up and move it probably back about 10 feet, which would also be out of the buffer zone.
Right.
Danny Proctor looked at it. He said it would be no problem strapping his equipment on there, probably with an excavator, because right now it's not on a foundation. It's just kind of sitting on blocks, and then just moving it back out of their way.
Okay. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, if I could just make a few comments.
Please do.
Just some information for you folks, just to reiterate what you already have in front of you. The septic replacement is a 1,500-gallon 2-compartment chamber, which is upgrading a failing septic system. In addition to the replacement or the replacement of the failing septic system, there will be related grading, as Steve alluded to a moment ago. And that particular area is confined to, I believe, less than 500 square feet within the buffer. The leach field is confined to a 360 square foot area in a new placement in the rear of the house. As you have looked at on your plans, the current cesspool is in part in the buffer zone right now. So the offset will more than take care of the replacement of the system. The house was built in 1945 and work under the Wetlands Protection Act for homes built prior to August of 1996 as repair and replacement, as long as they conform to the new Title V standards, which are outlined in 310 CMR 15.000. They're good to go. This has been before the Board of Health. They've approved it. Just to reiterate, the location is in ACEC and it is in a Zone 2 wellhead protection area. No vegetation will be removed from the buffer. As Steve said a moment ago, all work is currently on a very disturbed area. In fact, it's a basic, from what I've looked at aerially, it's a dirt patch. So the Board of Health has signed off on it. My recommendation, barring any other questions or observations, is to provide a negative determination for this applicant.
Any other questions?
So even if they didn't have an exemption, the only option that we would have is to let this nice person not enjoy a working septic. Like,
Well, yeah.
That's one of the options.
yeah, I'm not gonna sign up for that. They can have a septic.
I mean, it's clear they made every effort they could to keep it outside of 100 feet. So
Absolutely, and the whole area is within 200 feet of a riverfront. Or if it's defined as intermittent, it's nonetheless, it would be just outside of that. But my presumption is it's within the 200-foot riverfront, and my presumption is it has been since the house was built in 1946.
Right. Any other questions?
I can also add that we show a siltation barrier, the straw wattles. That's shown on the plan too.
You do.
We will make sure that that's installed prior to any work.
Yeah, Steve, if you could just give me a call so I can come out and just look at how you're doing it and making sure the performance standards of that are sufficient for the commission and under the Wetlands Protection Act in particular.
Okay, no problem.
I don't have a problem with it if we issue a standard order of conditions.
It doesn't get an order of conditions. It's a request for determination of applicability. So what I would look for is a -3 determination. So could I get a motion for a -3 determination?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. John Hussey, you in favor of this?
I do, yes.
Jim DeRorian, are you in favor of this? Dalton Wegman, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
Jennifer Eaton, are you in favor of this?
I am.
And I am in favor of this. So I guess I will be seeing you all to get signatures.
Yeah, I'll
Fairly
put that
soon.
together. I'll put that together for the signatures. I'll have that to you by Monday. Steve, is that okay?
That's plenty of time. That's great. I
Are you
appreciate
sure?
all your
Because
help.
I want to be able to, accommodate you.
Yep.
Is Monday okay? Because I have to also take into account, the commissioners have their day-to-day responsibilities. Okay, so we'll get that.
Anytime next week is fine, David, and I appreciate all your help and input.
You bet, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, and I want to thank the commission for their time tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank
You're
you
welcome.
for joining.
Thank you very much.
Can I get a motion to close this meeting for TWB 2020-179?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Yay.
John Hussey, you in favor of this?
And,
Jim Duran, you in favor of this?
Yes.
Dalton Wegman, are you in favor of this?
Yes.
Jennifer Eaton, are you in favor of this?
I am.
And Karen Hill is in favor of this. Okay, this brings us to 3.0. 3.1, I think we can get rid of that one since Jim DeRorian is here. Thank you, Jim, for showing up. And it's nice to have you at our meetings again.
I miss you.
I'm sure you didn't. Thank you for the laugh. 3.2. It's a fire and oil release on 0 Turnpike Road, the emergency order and notice of intent. Dave, I'm gonna send that one off to you.
Sure. A fire occurred at 73 Turnpike Road at approximately 1:30 a.m. on December 22nd, 2020. I don't know anything about how the fire started, but local Townsend Fire Department responded accordingly. A release of oil, an unknown quantity and an unknown type, was released as it ensued after the fire ensued. Its release covered much of the driveway in Leach South, which I'll get to in a moment, which happens to be which abuts a 75-foot straight drop off into a retention basin, whose approximate square feet is 225 square feet. So again, the dispersal of the oil was all over the driveway. I believe I sent you photographs of it. You should have 4 of them that I emailed you on the 24th of December, as well as some narrative. As I said, Townsend Fire Department responded and they contacted Mass DEP. As an aside, Karen Hill and I were cognizant of this shortly before 11:20 the following morning, which was December 22nd. And when we arrived, Eric Chartrand, who's our building inspector, accompanied us. We met with the fire chief out there. But prior to his arrival, Karen Hill and I instructed the owner of the property, Mr. Charles Rosbeth, to participate immediately in mitigating any further potential damage to the retention basin, in particular, as I referred to the south of the property, which is 225 approximate square feet. They did so. They immediately got down wood chips. Fortunately, they had many number of hail bays, because coincidentally, they have a number of animals, a lot of nice goats walking around and chickens, as well as some other livestock. So they immediately attended to that. Mass DEP responded shortly thereafter, along with a contractor that they hired. And they basically took over the show, so to speak. They attended the matter. They put down booms down into the retention basin. They further mitigated any potential impact to that retention basin by putting down wood chips and other absorbents that would immediately assist in cleaning up the driveway. The contractor hired by Mass DEP was New England Disposal Technologies. They are a DEP state contractor. And as I said, Chief Boynton and them attended to that. They worked with the property owner to access and stabilize the area where there was a release of oil or petroleum, and they developed a cleanup plan. A mini excavator was used to remove the oil from the impacted area, and that, as I said, that included booms, sawdust, hay bales, and those particular items were taken off site and disposed of appropriately. The impervious areas, though there were not many, but yes, there were, they were steam cleaned. And for example, what I'm referring to are, paved surfaces, concrete surfaces. And they were taken away and properly disposed of as well. Any wastewater that was collected was drummed up, and that was also taken to an appropriate disposal site, which, as an aside, I don't know where it's taken. I don't follow that chain, but I'm sure that the contractor did the appropriate thing based on what the demands are from Mass DEP. The approximate area of combination of impervious and pervious surface is 2,700 square feet. And as I referred to a moment ago, that was early on taken care of through a cleanup plan, steam cleaning as well as the absorption products. Straw wattles and absorbents were used, as I said. Sorry to be repeating myself. And to date, as of today, I've heard nothing further about the incident. And based on my experience, you know, if I hear from Mass DEP, then we would take action. The action we could take upon hearing from them could be an enforcement order for them to do immediate work out there to mitigate any potential damages, but that has already been done, and that had been conducted in advance, well in advance of 72 hours after the incident. Or we could have received a request for an NOI, or we could demand a request for a notice of intent. But given the fact that, again, the response was immediate, they have a professional contractor hired by the state. I'd been out there 3 times. You're lucky, you know, the town is lucky that it didn't do any further harm and it wasn't on impacting a larger body of water. And that's all I have. Any questions I'll take, and any questions I can't answer, I'll be more than happy to get answers for you.
Any questions?
Yes.
Okay, Dalton.
So we don't know what the material was that
No,
was.
but I can follow up with the fire department. Perhaps they can give me some information on that.
Okay. My second question is, for this mystery material that we don't know what it was yet, why were they allowed to store it there?
Well,
That's a-
first of all, it's not a mystery, it's mystery oils. It was a
Right.
mix of oils, and or, oh God, I'm sorry, brain fart. Like,
Petroleum product.
You
yeah,
haven't had your coffee, Karen.
sorry, it's probably my internet. So it's a mixture of petroleum products, and they're a farm, an old farm. And being old farmers, they store stuff forever.
If I could interrupt, you know, I've known that, I grew up with that family, and they're my neighbors. In my own personal opinion, I've been in that shop several times over the years. I think the majority of the petroleum product was diesel fuel. There's probably some grease that got melted and got combined with it. They lost a front end loader. They lost a skid loader. They lost everything in that building that they need to perform maintenance. So there was a set of acetylene torches that went up in smoke. I'm sure there was some grease containers that, you know, tubes that you grease a machine with that probably went up in the smoke. But they don't stockpile any crazy wild petroleum, anything. It's just the fact that, you know, they lost 2 tractors and the fuel that's in them, you know, went up in smoke. And that's pretty much what it is. It's the same basic stuff I have on my farm in my repair shop, only my repair shop didn't go up in smoke. Theirs did.
Well, Chief Boynton seemed to think that there were used oil filters, which yes, you would have used oil filters because you work on your equipment, and maybe some used oil stored in plastic containers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But it's
So
more,
that,
you know,
yeah, I get that, but you know, it wasn't just, it's, again, petroleum products is what it was.
Yeah.
So,
But-
you know, and it's a mixed bag of stuff, mixed bag of petroleum products.
yeah, grease, oil, motor oil. You're
Right.
absolutely right. That's what it is.
Any
But
other questions?
Dalton, what I'll do for you, as you requested in your initial question, I'll find out if the fire department has anything definitive they can tell me.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and it just seems like it happened because that's where their shop is. It's not anything bizarre.
No, it's not at all. You know,
Terrible, unfortunate event, for sure.
I'm sure if there was 100 gallons total, there probably wasn't 50 gallons left out on the ground because the fire consumed most of that. I'm sure.
Good point. Good point.
yeah, yeah.
You know, do they
That
have?
must have been one scary.
Well, yeah, you have to report anything to, the fire department has to, in my opinion anyway, report anything over 5 gallons. So they did their job,
Correct.
they did it correctly. And
Yep.
that's why we know about it. But
Yep. Okay, any other questions? I'll take that as a no. So that's 3.3. We have the planning board meeting jointly with all boards tomorrow, January 7th at 7 PM. This is a grants work session. I think Dave sent you out one grant possibility, I don't know, a week or so ago, but there's other grants that are available, and it mostly has to do with like sidewalks and building trails and other things like that. So Beth sent this out as an invitation to all of us to join this other meeting tomorrow night to learn about the grants and or think about if we want to do anything with them. However, most of the proposals are due the end of February. So it's kind of short notice.
so this is an optional thing to do, not a mandatory thing.
It's purely
Yeah.
optional.
Yeah,
It's purely optional, yes.
and it's a Zoom meeting.
It's a Zoom
So,
meeting, so there'll be a number of people on there, I'm assuming.
Well, I'm talking all day tomorrow, that's why I asked.
It's, no, it's definitely not required, but I plan on attending briefly. From what I'm told, however, I could be incorrect, but I don't think so. Part of the plan is to put together a subcommittee or various subcommittees to address each one of the particular grant proposals that's being proposed. So I don't recall how many, there are 4, so we'll have 4 subcommittees. My presumption is we'll have representatives from, my presumption that is that we'll have representation in each group, depending on the numbers that show up and have an interest in these grants, participate on a subcommittee. You know, for example, Board of Health, Planning, ZBA, Conservation, et cetera, et cetera. That's just a presumption on my part. It'd be a good way to do it, but we'll see. So what I can do is, if you have confidence in what Karen and I can discuss perhaps tomorrow to focus in on behalf of the commission, and then Karen and or I, as you want to participate, follow through and find out more about these subgroups and where these potential grants are going. Yeah.
I have all the confidence in the world, but I also, you know, they want that grant in sometime in February.
Well, no, there's a couple that are not, I believe, that aren't due until a few months later, but Karen's point is well taken in that.
That's
putting-
short notice. That's
It's very short notice. But the work, if we decide that we find one that is, or several that might be viable and that aren't terribly onerous and can be put together in a relatively short period of time, I think with the assistance of, and I'm not recruiting her by any means, but I could perhaps, you know, get some assistance from Beth as well. But let's see what the grants hold. I'll look at the timelines and look at various other variables that, you know, might prevent us from applying for them this year. It's frankly too bad that we got notice on this, you know, 6 weeks in advance of their due date. But that's neither here nor there. We'll just work with the time that we have.
Yeah, but we also have to think about, you know, what do we want to grant for?
Well, that's my point. Is, you know,
Yeah.
do you want?
The trail system and Meeting House Park or what?
Well, no. I mean, well, you've got. Well, I've sent you. The commissioners have copies of the detail that I sent out to them regarding the 4 particular grants. So if you want to take the time between now and tomorrow and review the detail that I'd sent and just give me back individually what you would like to pursue, take the totality of it and take the majority, and we'll go from there. It's pretty straightforward.
people can also join the meeting tomorrow too and chime in.
That's exactly right.
So, you know, it's.
I'll try to
it's-
be there.
You know, it is what it is and short notice and anyway. So if you can be there tomorrow at 7 PM, great. If you can't,
I plan on attending, yeah.
oh, good.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
Awesome.
Okay.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Actually, John just mentioned something about Old Meeting House Park.
Yes.
What day was it? Last week I took my kids out there and we had been out in the summer, and there's a sign that says that it's a partnership with the Conservation Commission and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yes.
Are we responsible for those trails?
Yes.
Okay.
That's our property. We got a land grant to purchase that.
Okay. The maintenance of that, is that our responsibility too? Because
Yes.
I'd like to, not now, but maybe in the future, talk about that, because those trails are in bad shape. Not only are the trails are in bad shape, but even the markers for the trails on the trees have grown around some of them and they're not clearly marked. And I was out there with my kids and we got torn up with thorns, and the trails definitely need to be maintained, which is something that I'm interested in. But we can talk about it another time. I just thought
Well,
I'd bring it up.
we can put that on the agenda for next time, but in the past, we've got assistance from the Boy Scouts in doing
Okay.
stuff like that. They're the ones that mark the trails, and they do help us clean the trails if we organize something.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I would be interested in helping with that, a project like that and others.
so we'll put that on as discussion for next meeting. I'm having major brain farts tonight. Sorry.
It's the coffee, Karen. You're not caffeinated enough.
It's water. That's the problem. Yeah, we're gonna say it's water. Yeah, okay. Anyway. So that brings us to 4.0, correspondence. 4.1, response from town council dated December 17th, 2020 to the AGO's office regarding the open meeting law violation complaint from Joan Savoy dated 12/3/20. You were all sent that. We voted on sending that out at the last meeting. 4.2, we have a public records request from Joan Savoy dated December 18th, 2020, requesting the audio of the 12/16/20 conservation meeting. And 4.3, letter from the Attorney General's office dated December 21st, 2020, releasing the open meeting law complaint from Joan Savoy dated 10/14/20. That one had to do with the fact that the meeting minutes weren't done, and since they were done, she decided she didn't want to pursue that open meeting law violation anymore. Then we have 4.4, which was a planning board joint meeting with all boards. Again, we received that yesterday, but anyway, that was our correspondence. So we're at 5.0, which we have items for next discussion for the next meeting, which was the trails. Anything else?
West Meadow.
It'd be
One
nice to
more?
get rid of- What else would we like? Are we gonna have South Road next time?
I really don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's momentarily just sort of disappeared again.
Oh, I actually had one more.
Okay.
What about North End Road conservation restriction?
Good reminder. I'm expecting.
Baseline development report to walk with Board of Selectmen. I remember last meeting or the meeting before when Veronica Kell was on, she had mentioned walking with the commissioners.
Well, if you
Establish
would,
that.
I can bring that back to Veronica and to the Board of Select People and determine whether or not they have an interest in doing that. The restriction itself has been signed. I'm still waiting for John. I think he only signed one copy of it. John, if you could stop by the town clerk's office before Friday to sign, there's several copies and you missed one, which is certainly understandable. I'll present that final document to the Board of Selectmen. And as far as if we want to take a walk out there, I'd be happy to give Dana a call. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to have us go out there solo, or perhaps he would give us a tour. But yeah, I could set that up.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking? Yeah,
Yes.
I'd be happy to do. All right, yeah, I'd be
Okay,
happy.
great. Thank you.
We have to sign something anyway, right?
Yeah, we have to, good point. Yeah, the request the RDA.
RDA.
So I'll have the RDA done, and I'll email you, John, specifically. I'll email everybody when the RDA is ready for signature. And at that time, John, I can double up and do the signature on the CR, second signature.
Jennifer, did you get paid for your last class thing?
She hasn't.
I haven't gotten paid for my well, it's a reimbursement for my MACC membership dues. I actually want to take a class, but I'm reluctant to take it because I haven't been reimbursed for the
Yeah,
previous.
that's on me, Jennifer. That's on me, and I will get that done and to you promptly next week.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that's on me.
That's another thing, I think we all have to sign that too, so.
What's that? Sign.
The form for reimbursement.
Yeah, I think we do.
I don't
Yeah.
recall. We haven't had a reimbursement in a long, long time.
Right.
I'll figure that out.
I seem to recall we all have to sign it, so, that might be something to get together
Yeah.
while we are all trying to sign stuff.
Or else what I could do if it's before that particular point in time, I'll get the check issued, give it to Jennifer at some point where we can arrange it. And then if you would just, after the fact, vote on, or however you want to go about.
Oh, we voted on it.
Processing. You voted on it? Before?
We voted on it.
Okay, so then I guess we have to wait. That,
We voted on that the same time we voted on the MACC dues. I imagine Dave's already sent those in, right? I think that was the same time, if my memory.
that was the same time, yeah.
So again, we all have to sign a piece of paper authorizing the treasurer to send out a check to Jen. So if, we can kind of get all the signature stuff all wrapped together, that would be
Put it all
fantastic.
as one bundle and then
Agreed, I understand. Yep.
get the whole barrel of wax behind it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I guess I'm still doing something here. I'm sorry.
8.0 yet?
No, it's 6.0, advertisements and conferences. 6.1, UMass Extension Services invasive insect webinars, January 19th, January 26th, February 2nd, and February 9th of 2021. These are usually very good, and they're free. So that's the important part. If you're interested and can take part, please do so.
Where is it going to be, Karen?
It's online. It's a webinar.
Bugs?
Bugs, invasive bugs.
Invasive bugs.
Longhorn beetle and all that happy crap.
It's, the spotted lanternfly, the emerald ash borer, and all those exciting.
Longhorn beetle.
Yeah, there you go. Jeez.
And they usually do a TikTok too, which isn't a TikTok like TikTok on the internet. It's a TikTok.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't have anything to do with what time it is.
Should we have somebody do that so we have somebody with bug authority? I mean,
If someone wants to do it on their own, that's great.
I'll do it.
Sure.
what is it, like an hour, 2 hours, and how long does it usually ramble for?
Well, I guess as long as your patience does.
I
Okay,
think they're under. I think they're under an hour.
Right, yeah. See what happens.
I think they're under an hour, but I'm not. Don't hold me to that one.
Yeah, they're not lengthy, that's for sure.
No, because
And the
they're designed for landscapers.
Yeah,
So
and the TikTok, as you said, I mean, those are very good talks. I went to,
Yeah.
last year I had been on a webinar about that. It was pretty interesting.
they seem to have them every month, particularly
do.
during tick season. So
Yeah, they do.
which is coming up in March. Yay.
God, really.
Yep. 7.1, next meeting's tentatively scheduled for January 20th, 2021 at 6 p.m. And now it's that magical part of the night. 8.0, adjournment. May I get a motion to adjourn at 7:35?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to.
And can I get a second?
Second,
Who was that?
second,
Oh,
John.
thank you. John Hussey, you in favor of adjourning?
Ah, yeah, absolutely.
Jim Drury, are you in favor of adjourning?
Yes, ma'am.
Dalton Wegman, are you in favor of adjourning?
Yes.
Jennifer Eaton, are you in favor of adjourning?
I am.
And I, Karen Hill, am. Thank you, people. It's been a wonderful night. Dave, were you in favor of adjourning too?
I can't comment on that. I'll follow your lead. Thank you very
Okay,
much,
have-
everybody. Good night.
have a
night, all.
wonderful
Thank
night.
you. Have a good
Happy
night.
Happy
Bye-bye.
New Year.
Thank you. Good night.